Okay. Phew. Sorry, folks. I had a lot of trouble getting in. I think I have everyone in, right? Okay. Well, good evening. Sorry for the delay. I'll wait for everyone to come through. Do I have anyone else? Okay. All right. Can everyone hear me? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay, here comes Danielle. Great. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Apologies for the late start. I don't know why, but I could not get my computer to work well enough. So it is 6:05 and we're starting our Diversity and Equity Committee meeting. Yeah, welcome everyone. Does someone want to read the beginning, our statement? Anybody? Please do, Ellen, yeah.
Hey everybody, excuse me, I'll turn my thing off here. We acknowledge that Berry City was developed on Sokoke Abenaki land, which the Western Abenaki Nation never ceded, made treaty for, nor were they conquered. We aspire to create a space in our meetings that is inclusive, participatory, and equitable. We acknowledge that we all come from different experiences and that our experiences may be affected by racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, ableism, and many other systems of oppression. We're here to address equity within the systems of our city in order to inform the City Council of our findings. We acknowledge that systemic inequities exist and do not debate the personal experiences of marginalized and underrepresented community members. With that in mind, it's important that we're thoughtful of the impact of our words on each other in this space.
Thank you.
In the chat.
I wanted to make Danielle a co-host. Is that okay with you, Danielle? To show those two items, but I can't quite figure out how to do it. It's the three dots in the upper right.
In my upper right.
In your upper right, right? Oh, make co-host. I see it. Thank you. Sorry. Got it. And welcome, Mr. Greg Cattell. Is that how you say it?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming. And do you have something to say at the outset? Because when we welcome guests, we sometimes ask if they have an agenda item or something there.
No, not really. I'm just here to learn. This is my first meeting I'm attending, and hopefully I can see what it's all about and see if I can contribute in any way.
Welcome. We welcome you. Okay. I know there's an adjustment to the agenda because Steve, who is here, Steve McKenzie, wanted to put on the agenda an item that we'll talk about later. Steve, do you mind if it's last?
No, that's fine. It's just a discussion item looking for feedback from the committee.
Right. So if we're going to add number 6, then would be the, oh, I don't know. I don't have this.
It's a discussion of solicitation language.
Okay. So, okay. All right. So the first item of business is a discussion about, I've talked with you and I think we're coming up now on our second year of activities, and I wanted to have us take a real critical look at our progress, not in the sense of lauding it so much in the sense of what we've learned by what our progress has shown us. So I want us to think critically about this, and I'm going to ask we could do pop-up, anyone who wants to go first, and see what folks are thinking about in those terms. Would someone like to go first? Well, I went to a training once where the person actually waited and waited and waited for someone to be first. But I don't think we have really the time for that. So I'm supposing that I just have to jump in. I don't mind. So the things that I've been thinking about are concerning me. And let me get my notes here. After doing this for 2 years and judging from and kind of observing how things are going, I have to say that I think some things are going really well, and I'm grateful for everyone's participation. And please, nobody take this as a personal criticism. This is a criticism of not our personal actions. This is a criticism of the conditions that we're working under. So I just want you to be clear about that, because you all are great, and I don't want to discourage you from working on this. So having said that, I recognize that the city is at a great disadvantage for a few reasons. One, the city has not really demonstrated its commitment, or rather its readiness for the kind of equity work that we've been talking about. And I think we need to get there first. So I want to tell you, when we started this 2 years ago, I looked into around the state to see what other communities were doing this type of work. And then it's kind of fell upon Winooski because they had a lot of similar demographics as us. So I did a little bit of a comparison and saw where it was completely different. But one of the things that is really different is their commitment to diversity and equity. So I found that their equity, what did they call it? Not a report. It was an equity. Ellen, what did they call that? The equity,
Assessment?
no.
It was something else. Yeah, I'd have to look it up again.
Anyway, it's a big report on their progress in the last 5 years. And
It was an audit.
an audit, that's right. And so I thought, well, let's do that, right? And then I communicated with the director of equity there, and she advised me to look back into us and see if we're really ready for something like that, because that's something that really was in, I think, year 3. I have a chronology I can show you. So number one, I realized that there's a few projects that the equity, that the education group we're working on. And through working through those, plus my experience on the search committee for the chief of police, I recognize that there are some real fundamental issues that we're not able to overcome. One is that we have no budget. So if we wanted to buy books, if we wanted to match a grant, if I wanted to even write a grant, if we wanted to even write a grant and that required matching funds, it would not be possible. Even if we wrote a grant, I do not think, after my experience for the past 2 years trying to get these things started that require money, I do not think that we really have the capacity within the city, not budget-wise, but in terms of a municipal staff. There's just not, I was talking with Steve about this today, we really need a kind of designated person, whether it's a spearhead person or someone to really shepherd these things through. This kind of committee and this kind of work is quite different from the other committees. It's not about shovels in the ground or growing plants or fixing the streets or people speeding through their neighborhoods. I mean, that could be part of it for sure. But it's something really different, and it's something that's very abstract, this idea of equity. I'm almost tempted to call it, instead of equity, civil rights or human rights, because we're really talking about community justice. We're talking about everyone having the same, not the same opportunities, but at least not having barriers to the opportunities of a good life. So, I kind of got a little, and I really tried. I looked at what they were doing, and Winooski has a coalition of different groups. So I approached the high school, the library, the recreation department, certainly the city, to discuss the possibility of creating the kind of coalition that would bring in equity training. That's what I was focused on at that time, was equity training. And although I got really great response, when it came down to the wire, the high school the school system has no capacity either for extra work, which is how it's viewed. The library is still very interested in cooperating, but they don't have a budget that would include books. So we would have to seek funding elsewhere. Like I said, which we could do, but then we need someone who is going to be in charge of operating the grant, in charge of managing the grant, because we can't do that. It's not our job. We're not hired by the city. I mean, maybe it can happen. I don't know if it's happened in other committees or other ways, but like I said, I really believe that this requires a different view. So, I mean, not to be doom and gloom, but that's the kind of thing I want to hear from people. Like, how has what's the experience of the Equity Tool Committee? I mean, I haven't really been involved. I've been working on other things. So I'd really like to hear from you about what your experience has been.
I can take a stab at that, I guess. Not sure what I'm
Thank you,
doing.
Ellen.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, the Equity Impact Assessment Tool Working Group of this committee is endeavoring to introduce this assessment tool, this impact assessment tool, to different departments and committees and anybody who wants it in the city, to start looking at their work through an equity lens. It's a questionnaire. It takes you through a process where you really can think about what the possibly unintended impacts or outcomes of your policy, procedures, proposals, all of that could be, and how to think that through instead of just doing it and then, being surprised when something has an unintended consequence for especially marginalized or underrepresented or disenfranchised people in our community. So that's what that is. So we, three of us, Svetlana and Danielle and I, Danielle introduced this tool to us because it's from the state. Susanna Davis developed it, the director of equity for the state. And so and Danielle sort of shepherded us through adapting it to our needs and tweaking it the way we wanted to. And then we started to talk with different people in the community, like the former police chief and the public works, Bill Ahern, right? And I think, and several different, yes, we tried to talk to the police advisory committee, and we talked to the cow pasture committee, and all these are great. But I echoed Joellen's sentiment that this work is terribly important, and it should be permeating everything in the city. And while we are all good-hearted and well-meaning people, many of us are not experts on equity. We don't work professionally in that area, nor are many of us, and I won't assume anything about all of us, but many of us are not experts in municipalities, and nor are we paid by the city to do this work. So, there's nothing that's going to, the city departments are strapped for staffing and capacity, and unable to function at a higher capacity than what they're doing. They're working hard. So I think there are some departments who have expressed to us that they would like to do this, but they don't have the time and they don't have the bandwidth. And we are all, working full time at our lives in other ways. This is our volunteer work. So it seems, I've heard this from other people who do equity work nationally and do trainings, and they say, if your town doesn't give you a budget, their commitment to equity needs to be looked at. So we have been operating without a budget, and just with voluntary, it's not even compliance, voluntary participation of the people that we have talked to who also mean well. And but this is a deep and systemic problem all over the country, all over the state of Vermont, all over the city, you know, all over our lives. And so yeah, that's what I'll say. I mean, I've loved the work, and I'm awed by what Danielle has brought us and what Svetlana and I and Danielle have been able to do, but it feels like we kind of hit a dead end with it, or at least a big pause where we don't know where it's going. And Danielle and Svetlana, please, if I'm misrepresenting any of that, please jump in.
I see, Steve, you wanted to speak. You have to turn your microphone on. I know.
I just thought it might be timely to respond to part of what Ellen said with respect to the budget. And I hear what you're saying. So the budget cycle at the staff level starts in August, and that's where now the new manager will sit down with the finance director and begin to template or tweak the budget template, if you will, update it. The new manager may have a whole different approach to budget. Who knows? But that manager may also choose for the first year to not reinvent the wheel, get acclimated using the budget format we have, and then maybe next year or beyond format it, or say, hey, this works fine, stay with it. But my point in that is that I don't think you have to wait. 2 points. One, I think you should be prepared to participate in the budget cycle when it happens, to advocate for a budget allowance for the committee and or the position that getting a committee allocation of some amount of money may be an easier challenge than getting a position funded. But either way, I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to wait until August or September to start your strategy and preparation for advocating for a budget allocation, whether it be for a committee allowance or a committee operational allowance or a position. You can take the adequate time you have now between now and September, and then make sure you put in your request to the council. I'd say no later than council and staff. I'd say no later than the 1st of September. So you're in there at the beginning of the cycle. There's no guarantee, no commitment, no prediction as to where it goes in the budget cycle. That's going to be the council's ultimate decision. But I think to achieve that objective, or either of those objectives, start of the next month or so, begin to formulate your, preparation, proposal, and so on and so forth. And that would put you in a good place to try to get a budget allocation. Of course, it wouldn't be until January 1st of 23, but July 1st of 23. So that's all.
Got it. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ellen.
Erica,
So,
Erica has her hand up.
oh, I'm sorry, Erica, please. Microphone. Microphone.
It looks like you're unmuted, Erica, but we can't hear you. It looked like you were unmuted. Yeah, we can't hear you. Can you hit a little bit? Yeah.
I heard a tiny sound of Erica's voice, but not
Yeah,
really.
not enough. Yeah, not enough to understand.
Mm-mm.
Oh, gosh.
I wonder if this is a case where transcription or closed captioning would work. I don't know if we have the option to turn that on.
Do that? Could you do the closed caption? I mean, what did you call it, Danielle? I'm sorry.
Yeah, closed captioning. So I'm a Teams person, not a Zoom person. I don't know if anybody from Zoom knows how to turn on the closed captioning.
Usually there's a little CC thing on the bottom, which I don't see, but
I mean, we
Uh,
should have one if this is the town's account. There should be an ability to turn on closed captioning, I would hope.
Participants, security, where would it be?
But I'm wondering if you have to do that when you set up the meeting.
Oh,
I'm not sure if you can do it from the desktop when you're in the meeting.
I can't hear you either, Svetlana.
Erica, do you want to put something in a chat for now? No? Okay.
oh dear.
So I'll put a note in our notes that we should always have closed captioning as an option, because we probably should have it going every time for all these meetings.
And then you'll have to instruct me how to do that.
That's fine. But
Okay, great, thanks. I'm so sorry, Svetlana and Erica, apologies. So let's see, where do we go from here? Okay, so having said that, I have to tell you that this is the beginning of our strategy for the city council. And everyone needs to participate in very specific ways in order for this to work well. But I'm going to start with the fact that these are the principles, not principles, but these are the kind of the suggestion areas that I'm thinking about. One, the need for professional help. Yeah.
sorry, just 1 minute. One, I don't think we've allowed time for everybody or to check in after Ellen spoke and Steve spoke to see if there's anything else. And then
Okay,
the other thing is that Erica did type something into the chat, and it says, it's one thing to have training, but also have someone enforce the training, such as a staff member. Yeah. Yeah. So I think you're saying, Erica, like if there's a training, it's also really important to make sure that those, whatever the most important pieces are that come out of the training, the recommendations are that they're actually being carried out by the folks who are working.
That's one of the that a spearhead, that a person who's in charge of that, or a director or someone who has that, all of that's in their hands to take care of. I agree, absolutely.
I don't hear you, Erica.
Oh gosh,
Nope.
no,
No.
happening. And you're off on mine, yeah.
How's this?
Ooh,
Ah,
So yes, exactly. To have somebody to be able to, for the person to go to if there's a problem with the training, or if there's a question about the training, or if there's a complaint, such as if there's an ADA complaint or a 504 complaint, or if there's somebody needs, if there's just an issue or a grievance, for somebody to enforce that training. Because you can have trainings up the wazoo, but if nobody's there to enforce that training, then the training is all for naught.
thank you, Erica, you're right. And I can show you, in fact, are folks ready to continue, or?
No, I'd like to add some information too. And one of the things I wanted to just get from Erica in terms of what your recommendation was, is do you see that as like, I don't know if there's like a strict staff training manual or if there's like HR policy, but you could see some of that, maybe that training being worked into that HR policy, so they have something to point back to, to say, these are the values, these are the practices that the city upholds. So you have something to point to if you see that not working. Is that something that you see as being helpful for that?
I've actually seen, like, in some places, they're actually hiring a person part-time just for that purpose. And if you want, I can do, like, I am kind of not really, but that person at my job, to enforce those things. It's not something that's written into my job description, but when there's a complaint, I am the person, like, if X, Y, and Z is not using pronouns correctly and there's a complaint, then I'm there to enforce that pronoun training. For an example, I'm not using the proper terminology for the training, but I hope everybody gets what I'm laying down. Or if there's a 504 complaint, or if there's an ADA complaint, I'm there to do the research and to come back with, this is what the answer is. But I can definitely research the job description that's already been laid out by other people, if you want me to bring that back.
Thank you, Erica. Steve?
Yeah, just a suggestion. The word enforce sounds heavy-handed, and I think it could be counterproductive. You might consider using the words support the training or something like that. I just think using the word enforce, particularly in this context, doesn't help you. I think it's a impediment to trying to get the implementation of the diversity policies that you're looking for. My 2 cents.
Thanks, Steve.
I want to say too that while it may not be a word that people feel good about, it is used accurately by Erica in terms of, compelling the observance or compliance with a rule or something like that. So I just want to be clear that the word is used correctly, although it may make people feel a little jittery. And I don't know if there's certain people who may feel that way, but I think we should recognize that maybe there's certain people who may feel that way, but I don't think everybody would feel that enforce is the incorrect word to use. Maybe you're suggesting we use a lighter word to make people feel more accepting of it. I don't know, but I do think it's correct in its terminology and the way that Erica used it.
Thanks, Danielle. Ivana, can we check your microphone, please?
I'm not sure if you can hear me now.
We can.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. Thanks.
Provide feedback. So I think that, again, I know I'm new to this community and I have not worked with this government and I'm not familiar with like people who work on the committees, and so I'm still learning. And I think what I've noticed that people are at different stages of, I guess we all are coming from different background, but also people have had a different training or maybe haven't had training. And this is not to point fingers or just to say that this is to blame anyone for anything, but it is what it is. And I think that if there's fear of,
Sorry.
Conversation.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
End of that, you were breaking up. So could you say it again, please?
Svetlana may want
I
to
was
kill
just-
her video.
What's that, Steve?
She may want to kill her video to let the audio take place. I mean, that might improve the audio.
Right now.
Is that better now?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, great, wonderful. So I think there is some fear, which is understandable, but I think that coming from, being a social worker and having done work on equity and specifically for people experiencing homelessness, but which was a very diverse community when I lived in Chicago, I think that what I've noticed is that you cannot do this kind of work without having dialogue and just honest conversations. But these conversations have to be guided. So you do need to have a trained person with a lot of experience guiding conversation, and this person. So yes, it should be somebody who may be a consultant or it has to be somebody coming from outside. And you cannot do this work without reflection. And because these are all abstract concepts, just like Joellen said. And if you have never thought about this, if you have not had this complete experience, so it's really difficult to understand. And with the media, with a lot of conversation happening and a lot of we are very polarized right now, I think that the fear is understandable. So I think that the first step is to have trainings, but not just trainings when somebody comes in and just tells you this is what you need to do, but trainings with a very important aspect that there has to be conversation, dialogue, and it has to be there has to be a lot of time spent on actually, reflecting on people's identities, on what they have, how they have been interacting, and also to create safe space. I honestly, I'm new here and new to this committee, and it doesn't seem that there is a safe space for people to discuss, have difficult conversations that we have to have, and also that to provide feedback. So let's say if there is, I think that is actually really dangerous if not having that kind of safe space, because especially if the city wants more diversity, people will come, right? And maybe they will try, but they will leave because, and they may not be able to provide feedback because they will be afraid to speak the truth, right? To be honest, because it is a small community, right? And people will be afraid to be open about it. And also for people, you know, who just truly just do not understand certain things or just are afraid of making mistakes, but they're afraid to be seen in a certain way. Again, for them also to have that safe space, just to be able to say, hey, I just don't know, like, am I doing this right? Or like, can I just have a conversation with somebody? So I think that like that important step, and it requires somebody who is a paid person to do that. And you're all right that we are a group of volunteers and we all have different skills and different, like we do have busy lives. And I think that it's not fair to ask us to be that committee. We also not there to police people, but also we're not there to do other people's work. And that what it seems to be, that has been happening with at least our work group, that different committees or different, or, you know, we have received documents and very extensive documents with that would require hours and hours of review. And honestly, like not just review, but also they should be doing like focus groups. They should be doing like short-term work groups that have all the parties that, you know, are affected. So people who are affected by the like policies, but also people, you know, who are like experts in the area. For example, with the documents that we received from the police, it could be, you know, people who are restorative justice, because I think that like, or other nonprofits and people from the community. So it has to be a group of people reviewing these documents, and shouldn't be us who are volunteers who are not trained in this and who just do not have time. And so I just want us to think about it, because the work, we can do the work because we care, but will it be what we want this community to have? And I think that, like, do we actually want diversity? Because if we want diversity, like we have to do the work, and we have to have somebody coming from outside, because like, let's be honest, like there's not a lot of diversity in this community, especially of people who are trained to do this work. It has to be somebody from outside. And for this somebody to come in and work, it has to be, you know, also adequate salary. It cannot be adequate salary and a lot of support, creating safe space and a truly welcoming community. So that's it.
Thank you, Svetlana. Ellen.
Yeah, and to piggyback on, I agree with everything Svetlana said. I never wanted this committee to be a rubber stamp that the city got to just wash its hands of. You know, and I think that is exactly what happens when you charge a group of people with something really critical. Don't fund them, don't give them a staff person, you know, a person. I know Steve comes to our meetings, but there is no person who is the director of equity or the equity consultant or whatever it would be. There's no, yeah. And I just think, Steve, when you said the thing about enforcement, sort of bristling from that or wanting to pull us back from that, that exactly underscores my point, actually. That this is how this has felt, that we have to, you know, bring people along gently, and we, you know, this is about people's lives. This is about barriers to making a living, to being hired in a city, to being able to be retained as an employee, as a person who is not part of the dominant group in the place. This is about housing, where people may be unsafe and landlords may be making lots of money off of very poor people. Like this is very serious stuff. And to assign it, or not, there's nothing assigned, to just have this committee and have well-meaning people get on it without any power, any budget, and to have to tiptoe around to make nice about it is exactly the point here, I think.
Thank you, Ellen. Anyone else want to weigh in on this at this point?
Yeah, I'll just jump in with my experience. Okay, I've just been typing a lot, so it's hard to think about things.
Why don't I take notes? I'll take notes.
So yeah, so I think what's been interesting for me is that this is all really like a first for me. You know, this is I guess diversity issues. Like I was involved and doing this type of work when I was in high school. And one of the things that we did, and it was absolutely amazing what the impact of it was. It made me think about what Svetlana was saying, where all we did is we just had like a group of students and we had the whole school kind of just shut down for like 2 days, and we just had conversations. And we had a group of people that came to us to help us with that and give us like, here are the things you want to have conversations with, like, here are the questions you can ask and things you can use to start the conversation. And what's amazing is like, no adults were there, okay? They just like left the kids in the classroom having these conversations. And I had never seen, after those 2 days, our school being more united and people being kind and like people feeling safe. I just never seen it before. So it just blew my mind what that dialogue was about. And maybe, you know, when you're at this younger age and you aren't as jaded when you're an adult, you can have these more openly and we can have these discussions without people feeling as hurt. But again, I came at that from a different perspective. There may be people who were in those conversations who didn't feel the same way I did. You know, I guess I'll never know. But I just think that really relays this point of the conversation, you know, having the conversation, having people who are experienced with this work come and help, because I'm not experienced enough. My heart's in the right place. I really care a lot about this. But I recognize my ignorance on a lot of this stuff and think that I would love to do more work and be more helpful, but I do need guidance, you know. And anything I've ever done in my professional life, I've learned from other people, I've had mentors, and they've helped me in the process. I never go into something just thinking that I know. And so this is a very new place for me. So for me, my focus now is to say, what can I do in this other committee I'm involved in like making this a part of our committee? And so I think Ellen said it maybe about this idea of like permeating into these other groups throughout the city. And I think that's the piece, you know, it's like this one, you know, kind of, success story is such a bad term, but it's like this one time that I feel like there was real stuff happening was when we worked with Cow Pasture, but we had somebody on the committee who was really active in making it work, right? So we did exactly what we wanted our work group to do, which was to like come in and say, hey, we got this tool, we can, you know, here's how we use it, we can help you, but they're doing the work and they're not expecting us to do the work. And so that is that issue that people have to want to do it, right? I don't know exactly how we get people to want to do it, but we can't do it ourselves as these volunteers. I think everybody, I don't need to say the same things everybody else said, but I really do feel like the things I'm feeling are really reflected strongly in the words that Joellen and Erica and Svetlana and, you know, our group has said thus far. So I really appreciate that. And so I really do want this work to permeate into the other work that I'm doing. Like that's my goal. And it would be great if we had, you know, a staff member, especially if we can get grant money. You know, in my regular job, I work with cities and towns throughout the state, lots of cities and towns. And the reality is that there's this idea of capacity. You know, we don't have the capacity. And the towns that want to make the capacity, make the capacity. And I'm not talking about towns that just have the means to do so. I'm talking about rural towns with super low tax base. If they want to do it, they'll make it work. So it's really hard for me to believe that, oh, there's just not capacity for this. And, I don't want this to come back to bite me, but I think it's really important for me to put this out there. Our work as the River Access Task Force, we just started, we wanted to do it. Lucas believed in this work, and he immediately got funding shunted to us through the Semper Bond funds to do work. So I just want to use that as an example, is if you have support, you will get support to do that work. And like I said, I don't know if that will come back to bite me. I hope it will not, because I feel really excited that we have that funding to do that work. And that's why it's really important for me to consider equity in that work, because it's hugely important, because we have lots of folks in the community that use the river access sites that are informal as places to go and feel safe. And the last thing I want to do is say, let's make these all nice and pretty and kick everybody out of them. So that's something that's really important to me in that group. And I would love to be able to look to this group or somebody that we've been able to get a grant to help support to do this work, to help us to be able to do that. But I do not think that I should have to look to the Diversity and Equity Committee and the volunteers in this group to do that, for that information. So that's my 10 cents of it. So thank you for hearing me and asking, Joellen, too.
Thanks, Danielle. William.
Yeah, I think there are two things that we have to be looking at. One is what we can do, if we get a staff person or get money, get grants and so forth. But the other thing is, what can we do if we don't? And look at, how can we bring equity, bring diversity to the community if we do not have a budget? I think that I've been encouraging the school board, for instance, the equity tool. There's one group that is most affected by all of the new policies, all of the new things that they do at the school, and they don't get asked about it, that being the students. So I've been trying to encourage the school board to do, to involve the students more in when they're looking at the policies that they're creating. But I think that if we want to do more with what we've got, which is no budget, then we have to look at, well, what can we do to try to increase diversity? It may be getting people of different political persuasions together, to discuss various items, symposiums and so forth. If that's something that other people are interested in, I can certainly talk to people on the Republican side about doing something like that. There certainly is something, I think we all have the same goals in mind. We may have different ideas of how we'll get there. But I think that's what we need to focus on right now, is what can we do with what we've got right now. And if we get a budget in the future, then we'll deal with that at that point in time.
Thanks, William. Ellen.
I just want to talk about VLCT and as another aspect of this. So as people know, and some people don't know, that I'm on the VLCT Equity Committee, which is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns that basically ensures all of the town, not all of them, but I don't know how many, but the towns are members, the towns and cities are members of VLCT. It in turn provides insurance and legal guidance. And I don't know all of what it does, but it's an important part of municipalities in this state. And it cared enough about equity to institute a committee to advise its board on equity policies. And we have 2 paid consultants working with us. We retooled the entire committee because it was going the wrong direction. And it is going to be providing materials and some amount of financial support or access to financial support to towns and cities that are going to do equity work. It's putting together a toolkit with all sorts of things in it that the cities can use. It will have some kind of an enforcement mechanism. It could conceivably not insure cities that do not comply. So at that point, I think that cities like Barre are going to say, uh-oh, we better hire an equity consultant or an equity director or institute an official city committee or something that actually has power and authority and a budget. And I don't think we can do anything without a budget. So yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that in. Like, I think that certainly would change the game to be, this isn't just a bunch of nice folks who want to have a picnic and have everybody get along and, we don't need money for that. That's not what this is. We're talking about racism and oppression and denial of services and access and building wealth and all of that. That's what this is. And for me, it's dismantling a patriarchal white supremacist system so that there aren't those barriers. So that's pretty different from a group of citizens working without a budget.
Thank you, Ellen. Danielle. Your microphone's off, hon.
I wanted to take this time to maybe have a little reflection as a group. And Steve, I want you to know that I'm not picking on you because you said the thing about enforcement, okay? I don't want to feel that you feel singled out. I don't want you to feel that way at all.
Happens every day.
Yeah. But I think it's important as a reflection because we all have something that we need to be reflecting on. And I think that when I think about, I'm similar to you, Steve, where I'm like, oh, enforcement, let's use a kinder word because there's people that are so sensitive around this. But then I think about when Ellen used enforcement and I was like, it's funny because I think if we were talking about speeding or murder or rape or something, and we talked about enforcement for that, nobody would say, let's use a kinder word, right? We would be like, enforce that, right? So I'm thinking when Ellen's talking about these impacts that this, our culture, although we're not necessarily, well, some folks, I guess, who created this system really were trying to create this system this way. Some folks did it unintentionally, but the reality is that it's a system that has a really huge impact on our larger family of human beings. And so I think enforcement in that sense, I'm like, and maybe I shouldn't be so afraid, right, to use a word like that. So I just thought it was something to really think about and reflect on how we might be okay with using the terms like enforcement and things that, we feel like everybody kind of gets on board about, but something like this, why do we feel differently about it? Why do we feel scared to use it? And maybe this is exactly the type of conversation, that I think Svetlana and Ellen and folks have talked about having. That's it.
Did you want to say something, Svetlana? Did you?
I just very quickly, I just wanted to kind of agree with Danielle that that's exactly what is needed. It's because people are afraid and they think that they will be labeled as racist or any other, there are all these isms. But I think that if it's a guided conversation by a very skilled person, it will be a lot of reflection. So we will understand that there are all these outside forces, such as, the system and the values too, right? Because I think being part of the dominant culture doesn't make you a bad person. But, somebody like that person needs to understand that it is a dominant culture and it applies, but it puts pressure on others who are not part of it. And if you don't have to think about it on a day-to-day basis, maybe some people do have to think about it, and then, but that impacts everyone. If there are people, you know, who are left behind, it's going to impact everyone, right? And if there are people who are suffering, it's everyone's business. And I think that, like when you start thinking about it deeply, you do realize it's not your personal fault, and it's not, you're not a bad person. And we all have biases. We all do, you know, and we all have things that we need to work on. But if you don't know what they are, if you don't realize, you know, all the structures and all of the power dynamic, then if you do, then it's a relief for many people, thinking it's not me and I'm not a bad person. And I make mistakes, but I can work on like certain things. So I just wanted to also agree and just emphasize the importance of a guided conversation by a very skilled person.
Thank you, Svetlana. I'm looking at the time, and I'm pretty strict about that usually. And I know we have Erica here as a guest, and also Steve had something he wanted to introduce. So I was going to, and this has been a very useful conversation. Thank you so much. But I was going to segue into identifying a few places where we could make some recommendations to the council, but I'm going to save that for our next meeting. I'll put it on the agenda then, so we can digest what's been said tonight. And what I'm going to do is put out a notation about, I'll put in the information that I compared with Winooski and also other things. But there's something that we haven't talked about besides budget, and there's two things we really haven't talked about that I think are going to help us in the future. One is there has been no grassroots movement. There is no grassroots movement here yet. There has been over time, and there are people in the community that are interested in this, but it hasn't risen to the level of a movement strong enough to direct council or the kind of way that we're moving through this topic. The other thing is the application process for our committee people. It's not very good. I mean, you go to council, you say yay, and they say, okay. I think we need an actual application process that can identify who the people are who really are aligned with our values and aligned with our direction and what's the word? Mission. So I think those are things we can work on before going to council as part of the recommendations. And so I'd like us to think in that way between now and the next meeting, which is thinking about things that we can make recommendations for to the city council in order to address the things we talked about tonight. Does that make sense to folks? And I'll send a notation to everyone with those attachments that I was thinking about. Okay. Are you ready for Erica?
Everybody's always ready for me.
That's good. So Erica's going to talk with us about something I find extremely exciting because I believe it's the first one, and that is the Barre City Pride Weekend.
So, Pride Weekend, yes. So I'm just going to put it out there into the ethos that I'm also a disability rights advocate, and I do trainings for free on systematic ableism and disability etiquette. So just putting it out there in your noggin, I do it for free. So yes. So I'm going to do this very quickly because I'm being told it's almost dinner time and I can smell it. My husband's a very good cook. So yes. So Lisa Leota and I have teamed up again this year to do Baked with Love on June 11th at City Hall Park. We are doing a by donation bake sale / family activities / we're having a tarot reader, we're just told, / children's story hour / family get together, picnic in the park at City Hall Park on June 11th from 9 to 2, plus community resources. We have some community nonprofits coming out. And we have been teaming up with Pride Bike Ride. There is a bike ride coming in from Montpelier to join us. And I'm not sure who is all involved with this. And also for your enjoyment, there is starting at 5, there is a drag ball at the Labor Hall. So this is becoming a little bit, we started this last year, Bake with Love, all the donations, so everything's by donation. And we are donating all of the proceeds to Safe Space, which is Vermont Pride. Safe Space is a lovely organization. It's one of the programs out of Pride Vermont. And they work with not only LGBTQ+, but all people dealing with trauma, domestic violence, sexual violence, statewide. And we are doing it in honor of Fern Feather. I don't know if everybody's heard of Fern Feather, but she's a, what is the organization that Erica's referenced? Safe Space. Thank you. So Fern Feather is a woman who was murdered this past spring. I'm not sure what season we're in. And they did a tremendous lot of outreach for people dealing with that traumatic event. And we thought it would be good to do a donation in honor of her. And I have dinging going on in my ear, so that's why I can't hear. And so everything is by donation. We want people to bring out their baked goods. We did not know that Pride was doing their drag ball on the 11th, but one of the advocates for Pride said, "Hey, we're doing a drag ball. Can we team up with you?" And we're like, "Oh, of course you can," because we love Pride. And so we're just like, yeah, let's commingle. And so yeah, it's exciting. We want flags, we want a safe space, we want people to come out and just show their visibility. Originally, Montpelier wanted us to commingle, and we're like, we don't want to be Montpelier Pride. Montpelier Pride is the week before, and we're like, we're Barry, we're unique, and we want to show our people. So when they said commingle, we're like, no, we want to have our own thing going on. So we did the week after. So you can go to Montpelier the week before and have Pride, then you come to us and have Pride again. We're really excited. I don't know if there's any questions. I did it kind of rush because there's a lot of information. But we're really excited.
Erica, is there a place I can go to like find a link? I did write down everything that you said in the notes. Is there a link I can add to?
You can actually go to the Vermont Pride calendar, the event calendar, and all the information is there.
Okay, I'll get it then. Thank you.
Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, what was the date again?
June 11th, 9 to 2 is Baked with Love. And then after, oh, sorry, I almost forgot. Kel Aber would kill me. The night before, on June 10th, is Shakespeare at the Labor Hall. So just putting it out there. But you really want to come to Baked with Love and then leave at 2, go get dressed up for the drag ball.
Great, thank you, Erica. I'm very excited about that. Thanks so much for all your work.
And also some community stuff that are coming out to join us. Vermont Cares will be out there. People's Health and Wellness will be out there giving out stuff. So you really want to come out and just show your support for families and do some community activities. There'll be stuff people will be reading books out loud to kids. And just show your support for all the families. And show your pride.
Do you need a tea leaf reader?
What? We would love a tea leaf reader.
Happy to do that. I'll call you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, definitely give me a call. Or
Joellen,
message me.
I can talk to you about that too, because at the Marlboro Fair, they have a tea tent.
Ooh,
And so they have this whole tea thing going on, and then somebody is also reading the tea leaves at the same
cool.
time.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, but all the donations we're gathering are going to Safe Space. So
Got it.
we're not taking any donations for ourselves. We really want Safe Space to have them because of all the good work they're doing for the community and Vermont.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, so we can move on to the next agenda item.
And I'm
And
going to say goodnight.
good night, Erica. Enjoy your supper. What is it? Make us jealous.
Joe, what are we having? What are you making? Spaghetti,
Ah,
gluten-free. So
enjoy it.
thanks.
Thank you for coming, Erica.
Thanks.
Steve, did you have something to say? Or no, that was, oh, you,
That was just a thumbs up to spaghetti.
okay, good. Danielle, could you put up the document I sent from Steve so that we can talk about it? And then Steve, you can introduce the topic.
Yeah, in fact, we don't have to spend a lot of time discussing it if we had more time, but if you want to give me any feedback through email, that's fine. It's just, I'm trying to be conscious and proactive, and when we have our public solicitations for committee members, boards, job applications or whatever, to try to enhance the language that we use beyond the standard we're an equal opportunity affirmative action community. So I've added the language that you see in that. I got to find it.
Let me see.
Yeah. So our typical language has been the city of Barre is an equal opportunity and affirmative action employer. I've added to that and said, and welcomes and encourages candidates with diverse backgrounds and those from underrepresented populations. Trying to, again, be not so cut and dry about the applications process and the outreach. I'm not saying that's the end all be all. I'm just trying to be more inclusive in the language we use. I'm open to suggestions. Don't have to have it this evening. We'll be more than willing to discuss as long as you want to, but if you prefer to give me feedback through an email, that's fine. Trying to have sort of a concise statement that's hopefully effective and communicates the message. Can't have a 3-paragraph statement, but so anyway, I thought that Diversity and Equity Committee was the appropriate committee to turn to try to get that kind of guidance and feedback. And
So
comment
Steve,
tonight or send me an email. Either one works for me. I had a couple other minor items though.
go ahead.
Before, but I didn't mean to rush off this topic.
I
Okay,
have a question.
yeah, Ellen, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I have a question. I'm a little surprised that you're having to come up with this language on your own. Are there other municipalities, maybe Winooski or the League, who can supply that kind of language for us?
I would be surprised if there aren't. I
Yeah,
just haven't had the time to do the outreach. I mean, I'm trying to be proactive on my own, but not to be dismissive of other resources. If somebody has invented the wheel, I'm not trying to reinvent it.
Okay.
So it's a good suggestion, and as I can, I'll reach out, or if anybody has any suggested links. I mean, as opposed to maybe your own language, I'll take whatever advice and guidance I can get.
okay, I know University of Vermont has some pretty clear language. I'm sure the state has pretty clear language. I'm betting the VLCT has.
If you have, again, in light of the discussion we had earlier this evening, I'm not necessarily trying to get the committee to do my work for me, but if you have ready access to those links or whatever, it would be greatly helpful if you could send them along. And I don't mind turning to the committee because I think that's one of the functions of the committee. One of the functions of the committee is to help advise the city. So
Yeah, our newly crafted, about to be ratified contract with UVM between staff and UVM has a very strong anti-discrimination statement. And I might just send that to you once it's allowed to be sent, as well as hiring language. I think the thing about diverse backgrounds isn't the right wording, because that language makes it sound like a person has to have a diverse background, meaning several backgrounds. And I don't think that's what we mean to say. So I
Yeah,
think there's got to be a better way there. And I know people have done it. So I'll see what I can find.
Yep.
Steve, do you have a date that would be helpful to have that information
Well,
by?
I'm all right. I've already started using that language, so and it may get to a point where the language probably should be presented to the council for some sort of formal blessing or sanction or whatever. I'm not there. I'm trying to move in a proactive fashion. And depending on how formal it gets, it probably should be run before the council, whether that's in my limited tenure or with the new manager, that remains to be seen. If I could get the council to bless some particular language before I leave, that's fine. If not, but I'm trying to think outside the box.
So you don't have a timeline, or you do that you'd like us?
Well,
to-
I have a timeline.
Yeah,
My
so what,
timeline is July 8th.
Right.
oh, I'm thinking like in terms of like, when would our feedback be useful by that you could still utilize it? So
Well,
you're
I mean, if
probably
you,
before
in the
June.
next week,
Okay,
you know,
So I'm the retired person. I think I'm the only one in the group that is. So I'm going to look up the VLTC stuff. All right, and I'll send it to you.
I appreciate the input from anybody.
And I just put something in the chat for you, Steve, that I just grabbed quickly off of UVM Jobs. It's their statement, and there's a link. Do you see that? University of Vermont is an equal opportunity.
No, I don't see it.
I
Oh,
can
wait,
put it-
yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll
put it in
put
our
another-
notes as well.
Yeah, and I'll put another link in to it.
Thanks, Ellen.
Sure.
Okay, so
Oh, but I had two more things.
okay.
Real quick.
Wait a second, Ellen. I'm sorry, Danielle. You're a host? Could you take over for a little bit? I have to leave for a second.
I think so, yeah.
Before you do, could we just approve the minutes from the
I'm coming back. Don't get me
April
wrong.
meeting?
I'll be right back.
Okay,
Well, we won't have a quorum without Joellen now, right, as far as I know. Svetlana's
Well-
leaving.
Maybe we can take care of my two items while she's gone.
Okay.
The first is, first, I apologize, Greg, we haven't met, but are you a new member of the committee?
It's just a visitor.
There we go. I think. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
No, I'm not a member of the committee.
Okay.
I'm just kind of here seeing what it's all about, because there's a lot going on, and I think now is a prime time for, people to step up and do what they can do. We have a saying in my family, which is, what did you do about it?
Yeah.
And
well, I didn't think you were, but I did not want to make a mistake.
yeah,
And
no,
that leads me to the next item, is just the annual appointments process. Actually, I'm kicking it off today or tomorrow. And so I wanted to double check. Joellen's not here, but the three members, first of all, there's 7 members, 3 with expiring terms in 22. That's Ellen, Danielle, and William. So if you're interested in continuing on the committee, I'm going to guardedly say right now, without having had a chance to check with the mayor, my reading of the policy prepared by the mayor clearly indicates that members with expiring terms need to indicate their desire to continue. What I don't know for sure is whether he intended that to mean you need to submit another application, or just a written statement of interest to continue. I'm trying to clarify that. Right now, the ad that I put out indicates that a resubmission of the application is required. So that would apply to you, Ellen, Danielle, and William. And then the other members of the committee are Chris Roberts, Joellen, of course, Svetlana, and JD Fox. The last 4 terms expire in 2022, so you're not up for renewal. Just confirming the committee membership, the terms who are expired and need to indicate their desire to continue if that's what you wish. And then the application or that process, applications are due by June 1st.
Okay.
Did you mean that the other 4 are 2023? You said
Yes.
2022.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did I
yes.
intended to say 2023 if I didn't, I'm sorry.
So the three of us are 2022, June 1st deadline.
And just so you know, JD Fox is not going to renew. He has a life situation that changed right after he joined us and has not really had an opportunity to connect. So,
Joellen, under the circumstances, I'll take a leave from if
yes,
it's possible for him to just send me an email, he doesn't have to explain why, just that he's going to resign early. That would be helpful.
not resign early. I mean, he may not have even the capacity to send me an email. So if he isn't able to, then and he doesn't say that he has a desire to continue, it'll just automatically, right?
No, because he's a 2023 term, not a 2020.
Oh, all right.
Can you send, I was gonna say, can you just send him an email, Joellen, asking if he is resigning, and then he just responds and says, yes, I'm resigning? Does that work? Like, does he
I
have
don't know
to?
if that works, but I'll try it. Yeah. Thank you, Danielle.
That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good night, Steve. Thanks for coming. Okay. Before we have to do minutes from which one? The April minutes? Danielle, is it just April?
April 18th, yep.
18th. So I'll take a motion for the minutes. Are there any changes? Yeah.
I would just change where my name is put as Will to William. And then other than that, I would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any second? Ellen seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. So before we do the round, and the next meeting would be June 20th. Okay. But I want to do a roundtable, but before I do that, I would like to know if Greg Cattell has any comments or reactions or anything to say to us.
I was just listening to the various comments and was a little concerned at the beginning where you were saying that you weren't really sure where to go next or what path you're going to take. And all I can say to that is keep going. You know, you don't have to get it particularly right the first time, but you have to keep going because it's something that's important. And if you don't do it, who will? You know, it's there comes a time for everything, and I think in listening to all the comments and suggestions and ideas, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to do. So keep going. That's my main thing to say, you guys.
Do you live in the city, Greg?
I actually live in Berlin.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much and for coming in for your words.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's it's a good thing.
Thanks.
I did have a question, and then I was listening to Greg's really great words. I forgot what it was. But I think it might be important. Oh, okay. It wasn't a question, it's a comment. I am not going to be in town at the next meeting. So I just want you to know that somebody else will have to take the minutes. I will send out the minutes and the draft after this meeting by probably on Friday. So you'll have that available to you through the Google Drive and also through Jody. She'll put it up on the web too, but just wanted to let folks know that.
Thanks, Danielle. Do you have anything to say for roundtable? Besides that?
Thank you for bringing up this conversation. I think it was really good to have this discussion. I think it was really important, and we should have more discussions around this stuff, and really take to heart, I guess, the suggestions that came out. I think that Svetlana had some really good ideas, and it would be really great to, kind of consider how we can move some of those forward. That's it.
Anyone else?
I actually don't know if I'll be able to be at the next meeting, as something very important is happening in my family the very next day, the next morning, and there'll be preparation for it. So I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks for telling me. Anyone else have anything to say? Well, I'll just say thank you so much for this discussion tonight. This has been weighing on me for quite some time, and I haven't come to figure out how to bring this up to us until now. And I really appreciate your willingness to be honest and to say what needs to be said. And so we'll move from here. So what I'm thinking of doing then is sending out that sheet of information that I gathered about Winooski to give us some things to think about. It has a chronology, a timeline of how they did their work, which I found extremely instructive. And I want us all to be thinking about what kinds of needs that we'll have. Let's think in the next 2 years, because that's maybe, it can happen before then, but for me, that's a short term. So let's think of some short term and maybe even some long term ways that we can move our agendas along and remove barriers to equity in our city and make it a better place to live, more diverse and accepting. So yeah, and I want you to know that our education, no one except me from the education group was here tonight. So I'm going to take, I'm sorry, William, you are, I beg your pardon. So William, you and I are going to bring to the next meeting that we have, which is next Monday, I think. No, it's the 2 Mondays away. Some of the thoughts about how we can move the agenda forward without any money. I think we should take that on since all the other projects that we've thought up require money. So let's see if we can do that. So I want to make a pledge to the rest of you that our group will take that piece on. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll make a motion to, sorry, Ellen, did you have something?
I just wanted to say that I put in the chat the statement that Winooski has on their job website.
Yeah, I just copied that.
You did, great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I added it.
I
to the
copied both of
notes.
them.
Great, wonderful. So go ahead, Danielle, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and to say congratulations that we didn't lose power this whole time, despite the
And congratulations to you, Ellen, for the union effort. That was good work.
UVM staff, 1,350 people now have, as soon as we ratify it, we now have a contract that is bringing people up to a $20 minimum wage at UVM in our staff unit. Yeah. Among other things. So thank you. Thank you for that.
We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Good night.